focused on offering academic support to students and connecting youth with opportunities to help them excel in post-secondary and beyond. As a major workshop, a student-run organization dedicated to helping youth discover their passion and decide on a major after high school. I'm pleased to welcome our speakers today, Nick and Sahib. Sahib is a physics major at the University of British Columbia. He believes physics is a major that has so much potential for new discoveries and has excelled in his academic journey throughout university. Nick is going to be a fifth-year student at the University of Calgary pursuing a combined degree in physics, astrophysics, and mathematics. He's been engaged in multiple extracurriculars and has experience working as an intern in Neuro-Physics. Throughout the webinar, please feel free to drop any questions you may have in the chat to be addressed by our speakers. This webinar will be recorded and uploaded to our website, YouTube, and Instagram. With that, I'll hand it over to our speakers to introduce themselves further, beginning with Nick.
Hey guys, my name is Nicolas Rochette. As you already mentioned, I'm going into my fifth year. I'm majoring in physics, astrophysics, and mathematics. I've been involved in numerous extracurriculars. I do a lot of student representation work, working with the Department of Physics and Astronomy. I served as an executive for the Physics and Astronomy Students Association at the University of Calgary. I've worked as a tutor. I've a bunch of experience, and I'm here to talk to you about this great degree that is physics, why you should pursue it, and why it's so useful as a degree just generally, and in terms of, I guess, improving the way you kind of see the world and think about the world and looking at all of that. So, yeah.
It's nice to meet you, Nick, and you have such a diverse array of experiences, so we're glad to have you here. Sahib, if you could introduce yourself further as well, that would be great.
Hi, guys. My name is Sahib. I am a fourth-year student at the University of British Columbia, and yeah, I'm in a physics major, and physics is something I believe that is very underestimated in terms of a major. And in the face of things like biology and chemistry, it's very often overlooked, but I feel it's very important. I'm involved in a lot of, I'm involved in some extracurricular things, such as volunteering at a hospital, because I do have an interest in medical physics. And also, I am involved in a course redesign project for an astrophysics course. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's amazing. So we have a series of questions prepared for both of you guys. So we can start with questions for Nick. To the audience, feel free to drop your questions in the chat and they will be addressed as we go along.
Sorry, what was the question to me?
Sorry, I think Hazel or Amish will be asking the question.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought my mic was unmuted. Okay, so for Nick, one of the questions is, why did you decide to pursue a triple major?
So it mostly comes down to wanting to have, I guess, a greater and I guess more diverse background to kind of work with. I kind of need to go through this in steps because it determines on kind of like what point I was in. So I originally applied into the University of Calgary for a physics major, so kind of majoring in physics. And then basically as I came in, I guess towards the end of my first semester, even when I was applying off the bat, I was debating really going in and majoring in both physics and mathematics because I wanted to have, I guess, like greater mathematical background as well to go along with physics. And I've always been very, very interested in math. But physics was a bit more kind of the priority. And nearing the end of my first semester, I'm like, hey, why not just add this degree in mathematics? I think I'm good enough. I think I'm competent enough. Let's just go for it. And then basically nearing the end of my first year, I decided I wanted to switch from physics into astrophysics. So basically in my second year, I applied for that switch and I got that switch. And then later on in my third year, I was kind of looking at all the stuff I can do and how I wanted to specifically structure my degree. And I figured out that with everything I wanted to do, I could add 3 courses and add on a physics major. So I did that. And that's basically how I got to what I'm doing right now.
Oh, thank you for your answer. Was it like a big change when you keep switching between the majors though?
Not necessarily, and the reason is because, well, for me at least. So to be fair, a lot of people switch majors and go like all the way all over the place. For me specifically, it wasn't exactly like that. Because the thing is, there's a lot of math that you do in physics. So that those math prerequisites really kind of led into all the stuff I was doing for my math for the math major. And in terms of physics and astrophysics, they have very, very, very large overlap at the University of Calgary. So it was rather easy to kind of like switch in and like add on all of these degrees for me, just because of how kind of my program works. Now, and of course, there are a bunch of people who do like hopping around from like massively different fields. I have a lot of switching going on, but I'm not necessarily kind of one of those people.
Okay, awesome. Now I'll ask type of question. The first question is, why did you decide to major in physics as opposed to other sciences?
I think that like I think I should also divide this into stages. Um, it started when I was young. I was always interested in astronomy. It was like the only astronomy books were like the only ones I ever signed out from the library. And I guess over time, like, science in general, like in elementary school, I was like, yeah, I like science, I like math. And then over time, it got a little more refined. Like, I do like the other sciences, chemistry and biology, I do enjoy them, but physics just stands out because not only because it's like it requires so much mathematics, which is another subject I like a lot. So, but I had these really good teachers, and I saw that physics teachers. I don't know if it was a coincidence, but every physics professor I've ever had is always very passionate about what they're doing, and they seem like they enjoy what they're doing. Um, and I don't know, it just clicked with me that this is what I want to do. It gives me a greater understanding of how the world around me works because I'm a very curious person. Um, and yeah, over time it just clicked. I had this great professor. I mean, a professor, a great teacher in 12th grade. His name was Blair Flink, and he inspired me to go ahead and get into physics because um, just he was just so passionate about it, and that just that inspired me, and I've I haven't looked back. I've been enjoying it. It's fun. Yeah, it's just never dull moment in physics.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like teachers play a big role in actually inspiring you and like, make you have an idea of what you want to do in the future. So I'll pass it on to Amish.
Okay, so for Nick, one of the questions we have for you is, how did all three programs in your triple major complement one another? Do you envision your three fields of study having intersectional applications in research or industry? And if so, how?
Overwhelmingly, yes. They have massive amounts of, I guess, various different combinations and like various different intersections that they lie in. Even if you get into like really, really, really high level mathematics. So even for example, in winter semester, I took a 500 level class, or which is like at UCalgary, a senior level class in algebraic topology, which is this very, very, very abstract um, kind of field of mathematics. It's very, very, very complicated. I barely understand it, but it has a lot of applications even to what I'm doing right now in Neuro-Physics, whereas if you're looking at kind of like graphical kind of interpretations of the brain, there's a lot you can like extrapolate to these like really, really, really intense fields of math even. And there's just so much background and so much intersection that exists between math and physics. Not even, and it goes past even just kind of like the basic things like linear algebra and differential equations and stuff like that. We're going all the way into things like group theory and these really, really abstract fields of math you guys probably have never heard of. So yeah, there's so much intersection. It's everywhere.
So Sahib, do you have anything to add on to Nick's answer to Tulsi's question?
Um, are we answering Tulsi's question here in the chat, or
Yeah, the
are we
question in the chat.
answering Armisha's question?
Yeah, the question that she sent in the chat.
Oh, the question in the chat. So I think that a lot of students, in high school, they're not interested in the subject compared to other sciences, primarily because physics in high school is, I don't know about in Alberta, However, physics in high school is presented as like these discrete types of, you could say, topics. Like sometimes, like they introduce like kinematics, then forces, then momentum, and they kind of make it feel that, these are like very different, topics, and it kind of overwhelms students when, that connection is kind of missing to mesh these topics together and give a better holistic view of physics. So I feel that students are like, whoa, we're jumping from here to there, here to there. And also, I think the mathematics kind of confuses students because compared to biology and chemistry, physics is more mathematical. And I think, math isn't a very liked subject in high school, especially, when in British Columbia, our physics, like the certain physics classes, like the proper physics classes, they started in grade 11 and 12. And when students hit, pre-calc 11 and pre-calc 12, that's where a lot of that struggle comes in. And when they have to, use what they've learned in those classes and then transfer that into physics, if they're already struggling there, they're also going to struggle in physics. And it kind of deters students to go for sciences that are presented still more qualitatively, such as chemistry and biology. Um, so I think that really kind of deters students because it's like a combination of, mathematics and then all these broad topics that are just thrown at you, as compared to, it's just not stuff that students are generally familiar with, starting out with. Um, so it just combines, and then a lot of students just lose interest or they give up, and it's I'd say it's presented as one of the the hardest of the three sciences that students encounter um, in high school. So I believe that's why a lot of students, they just kind of give up and they're like, hey, maybe I'll do chemistry or biology or something else.
Also, to add on to that really quickly, there's also the big physics engineering divide. I think that's also really big, where the engineers are stealing a lot of our people.
Yeah, that's true. The engineers are always stealing a lot of our people. That's for sure. A lot of the math classes, if you go to differential equations, partial differential equations, it's probably, I'd say 60-70% just engineers rather than physicists or anyone else.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like personally, I don't enjoy physics that much, and it's probably my least favorite science just subject. So yeah. So I'll pass it on to Armish again.
Okay, perfect. So I have another question for Nick, and this one is, how did you manage to do math, astrophysics, regular physics all at the same time? Like, how was the time management like?
Okay, so let's see. There are a few different things I can hit on. I think the first thing I'm going to hit on is friends will help you a lot. So physics, I think kind of like the imagination from like the high school perspective is you look at people doing physics and it's like, oh well, like look at all these nerds like alone in their basements, like writing on stuff and like not interacting at all. That's like that's really not the case, and especially in a degree like physics. I find that like group work and working with people can really, really, really help you, and like making friends and being able to kind of take these really, really hard problems that you might get on an assignment, where it's like you're looking at something you've never seen before in your life, and it's like, okay, well, like we need to like figure out how to take like these abstract concepts taught to us in class and apply it to this really, really hard problem. Having other people to kind of bounce ideas off of and to work with is going to really, really help you there. In terms of time management, it's something I still struggle with. It's one of those things that it's like you just need to get used to it and you need to get better at it over time. And it's one of those things where it's like you just kind of need to like throw yourself off and then just teach yourself how to run. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah.
Wow. I mean, like, do you have any tips for, time management wise? Because I think many high school students, and then even me personally, I struggle doing like a lot of things simultaneously because, like, how do you find time for all of it? Do you prioritize one over
That's
another?
let's see. Let's see. How do I find time? Let's see. It mostly comes down to kind of like So first of all, like working with schedules and being able to like work with calendars and planners and like schedule stuff like that will really help you in terms of time management, and kind of being able to figure all that stuff out. Another let's see. So that's one big thing. Another big thing is so for example, like motivation is a really big thing. So being able to take, I forget exactly what it's called, but the kind of working pattern where it's like, for example, you might work for an hour and then take like a small 15-minute break and like, I don't know, go on Reddit or something, and then go back to work for another hour. And being able to take breaks like that will really help your attention span, because oh, let's see, I can kind of do this, but like most people can't, where it's like most people can't just like binge for 10 hours straight and just work, right? That's not something that like most people can necessarily do. So being able to like space things out kind of like that is really helpful, I know, for like a lot of people.
Yeah,
like to
definitely.
I'd like to
Yeah.
add to that one. I think
Sure.
time management, it's a very difficult thing to do, especially for new students. I personally, I guess I'm one of those people who binges and just studies like at one like portion. I know a lot of my friends. I have a friend at the University of Alberta. He's like, dude, you should take like 15-minute breaks. But I feel like I get like too distracted. A good way to manage your time, I'd recommend, is put your phone away. Put it far away from you, somewhere else, and just forget about it. Um, I've tried like sometimes listening to music. Like you always hear in high school, or like listening to music may improve like your study habits or something, or may make you more focused. Kind of disagree with that. I feel like to limit the distractions, and like really focus, because when you focus, you're gonna learn better, and when you're not distracted, so you kind of save that time of having to go over the same concept maybe multiple times to try to understand it. You can pick stuff up quicker. So I think my big recommendation is put the phone away, and don't go to YouTube for sure for like watching weird videos or anything, because it's just you kind of get off track. And I don't know, that's just me, but I think overall for everybody, just keep your phone away.
Yeah, it's also a little bit hard for me to answer this question because I'm very odd, especially compared to my peers, in the sense where, like, if I need to get something done, I will literally pull like 3 12-hour days in a row and to get it done, and then just collapse for the next week. But most people aren't like that. So when I'm asked to give advice on stuff like that, it's like, well, if I speak on my personal experience, that's not going to hit with like the vast majority of people. So yeah.
Yeah, it's really personalized. It just depends on how you are. If you're somebody who likes to take frequent breaks and kind of recharges really quickly and wants to, do that, that's amazing. If you're a binge worker, that's also good. It's just, I think it's more about just limiting distractions. It's about picking up your concepts quickly and efficiently to manage your time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's definitely a more like individualized thing. You just kind of have to run with it and see what works for you, really.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like each and every one of us will have like a different kind of method of studying that will work for us. So definitely find something that works for you. Okay, so I'll pass it on to Amish again.
Okay, so this is also another question for Nick. We've got is what kind of high school extracurricular activities do you recommend for students who are interested in studying physics?
Okay. So my answer to this is going to be anything, whatever you're passionate about. And like what I would recommend to you guys is don't necessarily focus on the specific extracurricular activity you're doing and how that might apply in the future. Just do something and make an impact on your community and do something that you care about. I think that's the really big, most important thing when it comes to working with extracurriculars is do what you want to do and do what you're passionate about and try and make an impact on the community around you. If you go forward, I think with that mentality, yeah, you'll see really positive results.
Okay, thank you for your response. Um, Now I'll ask Sahib a question. My question is, what is the most interesting physics course that you have taken?
I think the most interesting course I've taken was so far quantum mechanics. I really enjoyed that. Um, it's just it was very different than, you know, a lot of the physical, like classical mechanics types of courses, or you know, electromagnetism courses. I feel that, you know, it's kind of presented to us sometimes that there, you know, are now like two big fields that are trying to be united in physics, one being relativity and the other being quantum mechanics. Um, I don't know if that's how it's like, maybe just how it's taught, but that's what I kind of perceive. I don't know if that's like a bad perception, but that's what I perceive. And I think quantum mechanics just really resonates with me. I enjoy the topic. Because that's the type of abstract types of things that I was looking for in a physics degree, to, you know, enjoy these types of things, to understand, you know, things that, you know, a common person might not be able to comprehend or doesn't know. Like this abstract aspect of physics is, you know, the reason I signed up for it, and that's when I finally got to that point and I got to learn about these things. I really enjoyed that, because I was like, hey, I finally made it to what I was looking for. And yeah, I'm looking forward to taking, you know, courses on more courses on relativity, and you know, just get to where I envision myself at the end of high school. You know, I want to learn about these things, and, you know, get a better understanding of how our universe works.
Well, I really admire you for how you like actually feel passionate about your major and stuff. I feel like some of us are just going with like what our parents make us do, or like what we think it would be easy. Another question from the audience for Sahib. How do you see yourself using your degree in the future? Like, what kind of career are you hoping for?
I'm kind of hoping, you know, to go to graduate school and then get into research. It's a Again, I just really want to understand, you know, more about our world and how it works, and, you know, moving up the levels like Nick has. He's in like his 5th year. You know, moving up the levels like that and learning, you know, about more of these abstract concepts in both mathematics and physics, and just uncovering, you know, so much more, you know, things that, again, the common person might not know, or, you know, a lot of people don't know about the universe, and, you know, getting to that level. And I think career wise, you know, maybe teaching in the future at the university level, or being a researcher. I think that's what I'm looking for personally. However, I do know there's, like, you know, so many other careers in physics. You can get into medical physics, and you know, you can work in like radiology and such. Or some physicists find work as, in engineering fields as also. I know that, you know, climate scientists, all these different types of careers. So I feel the degree is very versatile, and yeah, personally, I want to go into teaching at the university level and researching.
Yeah, if I could jump in really quick, at least on the research or the career prospects outside of academia, I think the question of this really comes down to, you have grad school level physics and you have undergrad level physics, and you're going to get kind of different answers depending on that. So on the grad level of physics, there's like a lot of research oriented stuff you can do. There's so so let's see, there's I'm not going to go into like the specific differences between like hardcore data science and like data analytics, but like in terms of like PhD physicists, depending on your field, you could be into like hardcore data science. You could be into a lot of stuff having to do with stuff around like space and designing around satellites, um, looking at stuff with like a whole bunch of stuff with design with electric and magnetic fields. There are a bunch of engineering positions everywhere that are available to physicists. Do note though that in Canada, the specific being able to sign off a design requires you to have an engineering undergrad, but you can still work as an engineer as a physicist. It's just you don't have like certain authorities that people with engineering degrees have. There's also so there's a bunch of stuff with, for example, PhD physics, undergrad physics. There's also a bunch of engineering positions all over the place, data analytics positions. Depending on what you do, you could go into designing software. There's really just a whole bunch of different fields you can go to within physics, and physics is a very generalist degree. So yeah, so yeah, basically that's kind of the answers. Physics has a little bit of everything, and you can do a little bit of everything with physics.
Oh, before answering Tulsi's question, Nick, have you answered Stephanie's? Like,
I
talking
have
about
not.
the
No, I
yeah,
just jumped in because Sahib, I'm pronouncing your name right?
Oh yeah.
Sahib. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just answer it because he was answering like near the end. But as far as let's see that question, wait, I lost it. Okay, talk a bit about my research experience in neurophysics. Yeah, so my stuff is really kind of relating statistical mechanics with a lot of computational neuroscience stuff. All my stuff is basically computational. I work basically entirely in MATLAB, at least right now. Hopefully, we'll switch to Python whenever I go to grad school. But right now, I'm working basically entirely in MATLAB, and I'm effectively running a lot of these computational neuroscience stuff. And I'm looking at a lot of the statistics related to that and seeing if I can take physical models of the brain and try and relate to some of the stuff we're seeing in computational neuroscience with a general end goal of basically the general field I'm working in is to create a physical model of the brain. So we can have like a physical model that we have with equations that we can point at it and we can say, hey, this is a model for the brain that we can use, and we can predict properties about the brain with this. And that's kind of the general end goal with it, if I can answer broadly.
wow, that's actually so cool. I never thought that, this would probably be related to like anything of like human biology or anything like that. Like, so
Oh yeah,
so
there's an entire field of biophysics. Biology is related to physics in so many ways, especially at graduate levels. But yeah.
okay, cool. I think Sahib, have you answered the question about wait, I kind of lost it a little bit. Career prospects outside of academia?
I believe Nick and I touched on that. So prospects outside of academia, going into teaching at maybe the high school level. I think Nick and I touched upon, different areas, such as, working in radiology, um, working in engineering, climate scientists, fields, positions like that. Because physics is like very versatile. There's obviously a little bit of everything, like Nick said. Um, you know, Sound engineers, oceanography. You can get into a lot of different areas because physics, physics lays the basis for a lot of these things. So I feel it's very important.
So, question from Stephanie, for both of you guys would be: would you think that physics has changed your worldview or general approach to problem solving?
Would you like to take this first, Nick, or?
Yeah, I'll take this first. So this is something that like a lot of people in physics will say, and it's definitely true. Especially if you talk to a lot of people with very in-depth experience in physics. Physics changes the way you look at problems. And having to describe it to someone who hasn't really gone through it is very hard. But basically physics kind of exists in this like very interesting like middle ground between hardcore pure mathematics and kind of the more these other sciences like chemistry and biology, in that we're taking mathematical models and we're applying it to physical situations, and that kind of like intersection provides kind of this very interesting breeding ground for this mode of thought of dealing with problems in a very practical sense, and by employing like like the best way I could describe it is kind of like mathematical ideas, but like not necessarily. I'm not necessarily referring to the mathematics itself. It's kind of hard to describe, but it definitely very much does change the way you think about problems, and it changes the way you think about the world a lot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Nicholas. I think like physics, unlike other sciences, I suppose, I think really early in physics, because you are using these mathematical models to describe real world problems and try to figure them out. I feel that compared to other sciences, you really get into this mode of problem solving much earlier on, because obviously for something like chemistry or biology, mathematics and statistics usually come on later in an undergrad degree or maybe in graduate school. However, in physics, you're right off the bat, you're dealing with these problems that you can visually see in your world because obviously we start with classical mechanics and physics when or in your earlier years you will start with something like that, and I feel that you will see the world differently. It's just it's like Nicolas said, it lives in this middle ground between the other sciences and just that hardcore, just that pure mathematics. And yeah, you have to go through it to understand it, to see the world, and try to extrapolate mathematics and your knowledge and apply it to different situations. And if if you're really really passionate about physics, and I guess that's probably a lot of the reasons why that's the main reason why behind a lot of people go into physics, you'll start seeing your world and being like, hey, how does that work, how does this work, and trying to just run that in your head over and over again. And it happened to me. Like I'd see, I'd be like, what are the equations? Like, I see that wheel spinning over there. What are the equations behind this thing? Like what's happening here? Why is this happening? Why when I was in high school, before we ever learned about torque or anything, I was like, I'm pushing on this door, why, if I push closer to the hinge, why is it harder? Like these types of things. Curiosity plays a big role in it, and that just leads you, once you get the tools, you'll start seeing the world differently. You start being like, hey, I understand why that's happening, or I understand why this is happening. And I guess you slowly just ease into it.
Okay, awesome. Nick, can you answer Tulsi's question in the chat?
Okay,
Like-
so what are some recent developments slash research in physics you guys are excited about? What big things are going on in the world of physics? So there are a few big things that I can kind of generally talk about. The first thing that comes to my mind immediately are the Lego experiments that were like fairly recently. Um, so I don't know how much detail I can really get into here, but the idea is they're measuring something called the G factor of a muon, which is kind of like the heavier cousin of an electron, and basically depending on how exactly off it is, and if it's off from like the quote unquote like predicted value that we have from our theories, that can determine kind of how different theories might shift in terms of being able to say, oh, well, like this might be like a better interpretation of quantum mechanics versus this, and like so on. It's kind of complicated, so I can only talk really high level. Another thing that comes to my mind is something that a professor at the University of Calgary is actually working on. He's working on anti-hydrogen experiments at CERN, and basically attempting to determine if antimatter has positive or negative mass. Everyone thinks it's positive mass, but we have no experiments to actually like really verify it yet. And there's a lot of teams right now in CERN that are putting a lot of effort to try and really get a lot of these experiments down to say, okay, like does antimatter have positive or negative mass? Because we really really don't know at this point. There's let's see, there's also some I guess more niche developments in like my own field, but they're very very particular, and yeah. So those are a few broad things.
So Sahib, a question from Tulsi is there a way to get involved in physics research in semester 1 of university?
If you're talking semester 1 first year, personally at the University of British Columbia, I'd say no. Your chances are basically zero. I know. I remember I went to this class and my professor's like, "Yeah, we don't." He was just talking generally to the entire class. He's like, "Yeah, I don't hire undergrad students. I only hire grad students because there's so many skills you need before you can even participate in research, such as computer science skills, coding, we're working with Python, MATLAB, C++. You need all these skills and obviously all these concepts beforehand because the type of research that's being carried out is at a very high level. Like Nicholas was talking about, these types of experiments, and professors carrying out experiments, they require a fair bit of knowledge, very specific knowledge, in a certain area of physics. So, you know, in semester one of university, no, it's. I know it sounds. I know I'm sounding like kind of like a downer, but the reality is you're not going to be seeing like, getting research positions, maybe even in your second or third year. It's very scarce. I know in biology, they're a little more open, to help get help in the lab and stuff like that. I know some people who are doing, research in their, uh, I guess, third or fourth year, but it's much harder, I suppose, in physics. I don't know. Maybe it's just the university I'm at, or maybe I'm just not aware enough. But um, from what I know, like, and what I've heard from professors, grad students are what they're looking for because they're trained and they have obviously more knowledge in specific fields and niches. So yeah, getting you're still a long way in semester one from being able to participate in research with professors. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to add on to that, I mostly agree with Sahib. If you're trying to get research, I guess, in your first year or after your first year, your chances are very, very, very low because you just don't have like the background necessary to do a lot of the stuff that's being done in physics right now, right? Even like at least even at the University of Calgary, at the end of your second year, if you're finished your second year, your background is in physics is very much going to be classical mechanics, introductory E&M, some computational physics, and that's like basically about it, right? Right, and like even at that point where we're talking after second year, and like you can definitely get research after second year. You don't even have like that like real depth of knowledge to like really start like jumping into research. You can do research at the end of even at the end of your second year. I'd say that's like probably just enough background, but like at the end of first year, you're going to be very, very, very hard pressed. And if you are going to shoot for research, you definitely need to be quite exceptional, and you need to be you need to have kind of a lot of a head start on a lot of these subjects to really kind of understand what's going on. And it's also going to depend on the field, right? Like a researcher in quantum mechanics or like material science or something that's very heavily quantum involved, they're not going to take you unless you have a course in quantum mechanics. Like, right? So.
Yeah, just to add on to that, like at my university, I think at the undergrad level, there's obviously an introduction to special relativity and then quantum mechanics, then an introduction to just quantum mechanics, and then maybe I think at the end of your fourth year, you'll be you'll finally get an introduction to elementary particles and things like that. But like, I feel that like I feel that in my university, you really need to get into the grad school where they're actually teaching just quantum mechanics. We have course quantum mechanics 1 and then 2 at the grad level, and those types of, you really need to have those under your belt at the grad level to really be even, considered in a way for research, because um, like Nicholas said, there's just so many skills that you need other than just the knowledge, such as being able to work with Python, being able to work with different coding languages to even be able to contribute or understand what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, what are your advice on like preparing to, doing research? Like, how would you do it? Like, do you just read all the books and like maintain your high GPA? Like, what do you do?
Just to answer this question briefly, basically, take subjects, see what you're interested in, and then go talk to professors. The big thing is kind of talking to professors, looking at the fields they're working at, seeing what they do and seeing what you want to do, right? And then and that's like kind of the first real big thing. I would recommend just kind of like go along in your classes, see what you're interested in, and if you want to do research, go talk to professors about it, and kind of see where they're at. And then if they're willing to take you, then this goes into kind of grant applications, right? Right, where, for example, I'm funded by the NSERC USRA, is where I get my funding for my research internship, and then you can go through that entire process. And if you get the grant, you get to do research. So yeah.
Okay, so now can you guys touch a little more on what is taught in computational physics, as well as how like computer science can help us and what we can do to over the summer to help with that?
Yeah, so computational physics, um, I think computational physics, what it's doing is kind of making problem solving more, I guess, efficient in a way. You won't be out here, solving, you won't be, coming across equations that are, analytically you can't solve analytically, and you have to apply numerical methods, and it just gives you the tools to crunch, I guess, numbers faster. Because in real life, uh, the situations that you learn, I guess, in mathematics classes, they're not, perfectly aligned with what you'll see in the real world or while you're doing experiments. And I think computational physics also plays a big role of when you're going to get into grad school and actually be doing research, because you'll be coming across, like, I remember when I took PDEs, our professor showed us this PDE that could not be solved analytically, and yet obviously he used computers in MATLAB to get solutions numerically. And saving time and crunching numbers using computers is very efficient. It's not that we don't know how to solve something. It just makes the work more efficient, which I feel is very important, um, especially at the research level. And I think over the summer, if you're, if you would like to, learn a language like Python or C plus or C plus plus or just C, um, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it would hurt you because you will be learning in computational physics different coding languages or programming languages. Yeah.
Since we're talking so much about like research, what is your ultimate goal of doing these like physics research? Because what I know is like chemistry or biology, if they're trying to come up with like new medicine or vaccines to treat people, but what you guys are doing in physics? Because what I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like you guys already know all the answers to like, oh, why the Earth goes around the sun, or like basically why things work. So what are you guys trying to do by doing these researches?
I feel that, yeah, we do know a lot, and but there's a lot that we don't know. I think Nicholas brought some things up, like the LIGO experiments, um, dark matter, reconciling uh, or combining relativity and quantum mechanics, kind of finding a theory for everything. There's so many things we don't know. I feel that the public perception feels like, oh, we kind of know everything, but we don't know a lot of things. That's the reality. And I feel that there are, in chemistry and biology, we have research for a lot of important things, vaccines, research into illnesses. But I feel physics research is different in an aspect where it's more about a grand idea to fuel human understanding. I think it's just that combined curiosity to know how our universe truly works. And I feel that physicists are working towards that. It may not seem like a very, I guess, a very a very nice looking short term goal, but I think the end goal will be worth it.
Yeah, just to add on to that, so something I think people kind of make the mistake on when they look at research in physics is they specifically like narrow it down to theoretical physics, and physics is so much more broad than just theoretical physics. There's so much stuff going on. Just in this is insane. So obviously there are kind of like the more theoretical questions of, okay, well, we don't know how quantum mechanics and general relativity interact. We know how special relativity and quantum mechanics interact. We have no idea for general relativity, right? And it's like, okay, well, how does this actually work? And the answer is we don't know. And there are a lot of people right now working to try and like come up with answers to that solution, so that whenever we can find tests for these potential answers, we can figure something out about our world. So there are a lot of people doing that, but there are so many other fields as well. I can talk, I guess, locally within like my own field, neurophysics, trying to look at the brain and trying to find physical models of the brain. It's very interdisciplinary. Lots of people from lots of different fields working together to try and solve this, and just really interesting applications of physics. There are also in terms of, for example, medical physics as well as biophysics, there's lots of really cool stuff going on. For example, physics being applied to like things like medical imaging and trying to create things in hospitals that can save lives right now is a really big thing going on right now. For example, like radiology and all the stuff around that. There's biophysics for like more applications towards biology. And a big thing there is protein folding, which is also very computer science related. You guys might have heard about that. Protein folding is very complicated. Lots of stuff going on there. And basically, like understanding stuff around protein folding could, for example, lead to a cure to cancer, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff right there. There's stuff in material science, right? Right, that has like all of these different applications within industry and beyond. There are so many unique kind of places and fields within physics. There's stuff in electromagnetism, astrophysics, all of this stuff. So it's so much more broad than just kind of these kind of like theoretical ideas of, okay, how do I take this really broad idea and this really broad idea and like these two specific ideas and make them kiss? It's so much more broad than just that.
Well, definitely. I mean, like hearing you guys talk about how physics can be applied to life kind of makes me rethink about physics as, opposed to being really like dry and just like theoretical. And yeah, I think that's all the questions there are. So I'll see if the audience have any more questions. Yeah. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat box.
I think there was one in the chat box. If professors allow shadowing, I don't know. I don't generally believe they allow shadowing. I feel that's kind of a. I don't know how that would work exactly, but
So
yeah.
if it would work the way I think it works, you're not allowed to do that, and the reason is because like I'm interpreting shadowing here to be researching without a grant. And that's at least at the University of Calgary, and I'm pretty sure at other universities within Canada that's not allowed. Where basically like if you're doing a research internship, you need to be paid for your work.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that works. What you mean by shadowing, but generally, I don't know. I think professors would consider that more of a nuisance, and that's that also you need to be paid when you're doing research work.
Okay, thank you guys. Actually, I have one more question. What do you think, like professors and like people in general, like look for in like interns and students when they apply? Like, do they look at students who have like a lot of knowledge on this matter, or like students who are passionate about this to allow them to do a job, like do interns or researches on physics?
Yeah, so if I can take this question, the big thing is passion, because as a student you already know nothing. So there's a difference between knowing nothing and knowing a little bit less than nothing, right? And there's and in the grand scheme of things, there's not as much. There's a difference, right? But there's like not as much as a difference as long as you're at a certain level and you've taken a certain amount of background and a certain amount of classes, right? Right. Like if I know the basics of like quantum mechanics and I'm going to go work in do a research internship in material science or something like that, right? There's like a base level of background I have from taking the class, and like sure, I might have a little bit over that background, but it's not really going to be significant, right? The big thing is interest and passion in what you're doing, because as a student researcher, you're really it's mostly learning, right? I'm basically learning as I'm going and learning all of this stuff about my field, and I barely know what I'm doing. So, and that's generally universally across the board for I guess people in my kind of position.
Awesome, thank you. Do you have any input on this, Harry?
I feel that I mostly agree with Nicholas on that. Is that you obviously do need the background. I think that we touched on that when we talked about a question earlier. We touched on that where a background is necessary, but when you're doing research, It's a lot about the passion and the dedication and being motivated to participate. And yeah, I think that's the big thing. It's just being passionate about what you're doing, because in the first thing, you wouldn't get into it if you're not really passionate about it, if you don't really care about it. And physics is so broad, it's so big. There's so many different areas. So I guess there's obviously something for everyone to get into, and there's obviously something for everyone to be passionate about. And I think that means a lot to professors.
Awesome, thank you. I'll just see if there are any more questions from the audience. Oh, I just thought of something. I read in your bio, like one of you guys were working as teacher assistant. Am I correct?
Yes, I'm working as an undergrad
Yeah.
academic assistant. I'm currently working on redesigning the course.
Oh, I see.
Um, I feel that because this course is like very pivotal in whether a lot of students will continue in astrophysics or not. I feel that tweaking this course and just making it more interesting and more involved will allow students to, I guess, become more inspired, get more into it, and it kind of grow our physics department or our astronomy department here at the University of British Columbia. And just like I think I answered a question earlier on why students don't get into physics in high school. I feel that because even in university, you can take a lot of electives. Starting out, a lot of electives for astronomy, and there are a fair number of people who are in biology degrees or chemistry degrees that will be like, hey, I want to take a class in astronomy. It sounds cool, but then they kind of forget that there's a lot of physics application in astronomy, and we kind of want to still keep these people coming to astrophysics and being inspired or enjoying what they're doing and what they're learning, because again they might perceive it when they come to the class, they might perceive it as, oh, it's just physics, it's boring, or they might feel like they did in high school about physics if they ever felt like that. So we want to kind of change that view on physics and get more people in on it.
Yeah. Wait, so can you actually talk a bit about how you became teacher assistant? Like, what was the application process like?
So I took this course myself, and it was actually being taught by two professors. One I think it was her first semester teaching, and so she wanted to hold the SAP funded project to redesign the course. Um, there are a lot of different courses at UBC that get redesigned. I think the Student as Partners program, I think it runs all over Canada. So we have biology courses that are redesigned, and I got in on it because I thought it was a really good opportunity to help, kind of, like I said, help more people get into get more into astrophysics, or take more electives, or in the astronomy department, and just grow our department. So I got into it mainly, not through an application.
Sahib, I think you're frozen, so we can address the next question in the chat while you come back. So, Nick, is it okay to take astronomy for an elective, even if not in the physics department?
Yeah, totally. If you're not like it, So yeah, so I don't exactly know the background. You're coming to me with this question. But yeah, totally. Generally, I will say, like, for example, at the University of Calgary, if you're majoring in physics, you can't take astronomy as an elective because that would be a bit too easy for you. So our department doesn't let you do that. But if you have any other major other than physics or astrophysics, you can take astronomy freely. And yeah, if you're interested in astronomy, go take astronomy. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for answering our questions. And with that, I think that's all the questions from our audience today. We'll give you until 5:05 to type in any last minute questions, and then we'll end the webinar. Welcome back, Sahib. If you could just provide your input on this question. I'm not sure
Yeah,
if you can, so I'll read it.
my Wi-Fi all of a sudden just, I don't know what happened. I guess I was talking about the undergrad academic assistant role. So I got into it. It wasn't really an application process to get in. Professors just sent out an email saying, we're doing this project. If you'd like to participate, you can put down your name and tell me if you're interested. And then I guess there was a bit of an application process. However, our class was, I believe, 60 people. It wasn't very big, and I feel that that's one of the primary reasons to, um, have this project in the first place is to grow the astrophysics department, and so we signed up for it, and then we applied for the grant, and luckily we got it. And yeah, it was very different from, I guess, your traditional research role of first asking a professor and then going through an application process. It was different, and I think it was more of a unique situation. So I think Nicholas would be better off answering something of, I guess, a more traditional research application role type of thing, because this wasn't that exactly.
Or yeah, even to add on to like TA stuff at the University of Calgary, how it's typically done is the associate head undergrad will send out an email and be like, "Hey, we have this position open. Reply if you want it," and then they go through this entire thing after that, and then yeah, they hand out positions. That's typically how it goes. For TA positions, the department will let you know if they need them, and then you reply to them. Research positions is something that you need to take the initiative as a student. So you do get paid as a TA, yes.
Yeah, the TA role at the University of British Columbia is different than that of what I'm doing. The TA roles are usually during the semester. I think this is, I guess, more of just a course, just working with a professor to redesign the course. I think the TA role is different, although our professor does want us to now TA for her class because they want to see if the course redesign was perhaps more effective or not. And then yeah, it was, I'd call it like it's kind of different than your regular research role or your TA type of role. I guess that's just though how the project was set up. So it's I don't feel very qualified to answer on like a traditional research role. And yeah.
Also, for clarification, I was combining both of them in my head because the application process at UCalgary is the same for both. So it applies to both of them.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also, yeah, it just depends on the university you're at as well.
Okay, with that, I think that's all the questions in the chat today, and we'll move on to the closing speech.
Okay. So on behalf of the major workshop and Auxi Project, I'd like to thank our speakers Nick and Sahib for taking time out of their busy schedules to make this event a success. Your responses were all very insightful and informative, and I'm sure we've all learned a lot from your experiences. With that, we'd also like to thank the audience for attending and would encourage you all to attend our future webinars as well. Make sure to follow our Instagrams to get the latest updates on our Science Pathways webinar series, and Zainab has typed them in the chat below. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you for attending, everyone, and thank you to our amazing speakers for answering all our questions.